James Bond classics are being edited for my protection? What are they coming in bubble wrap so you can't hurt me when you fling them at me?
Yes, don't you know how many people were assaulted by classic literature last year?
I have Mecca, and well, they are kind of hard and pointy.
Yes.
Oh, they come in hardcover. I thought they were these little teeny tiny books, because anytime I've seen them at like the thrift stores and flea markets and Goodwill, and they're teeny little...
These are more dangerous because you could throw them more easily.
Like a throwing star.
Yes. Smack!
It's MGM. We can't use footage of the movie, but
No,
maybe we can. But pretend we use the clip of what's his name, hand job.
We'll have to paint you a visual picture. I'm a very large Korean man, and I'm taking off my hat and throwing it.
They do. They get so mad when you use footage from MGM.
Yes, they do. The movies have been around for 60 years. Who hasn't seen them at this point? Unless you're very young.
It's been so long, I've forgotten most of them.
Do you really need to protect them at this point? No, I'm being completely serious.
A lot of these I haven't seen since like 1994. And I'm being honest on some of these. Like some of these James Bond movies I haven't seen since the 90s.
TBS, Ted Turner Network, used to run them every Thanksgiving for a week straight. I'm like, sweet. Bond movies are on. Oh, yeah.
Well, you put them on in the background, and they're great. They're great. Thing is, I never had any inclination to read them, but now they're being edited for your protection. I don't want to read them.
You're going to read them because you know what's good for you.
I don't want to read them, though.
No. You have to read them. Because you have to...
They're making me read the books now?
Yes, because you have to find out why they're offensive and why they're being edited.
You will read it at home.
No.
And you will all be mature about its adult themes and language.
Yes.
How about I just go with the movies, and if I want to read those, I'll go with the old books. But I don't want to read the old books either. You can't make me read. I don't want to be a reader. I don't like fiction books.
Are you Kanye? You're a proud non-reader?
No, I like reading books on like UFOs and the Pleiades. And,
okay.
You know, I like nonfiction books. And somebody's scratching on their scratchy post. Zabu. Zabu, do you want to? You have to read these James Bond books now. Is that okay?
No, I don't want to read them.
Why not?
Because there's no Cheetos in them.
Exactly. There's no, what is it in there to read for me? Why would I read this and not see the movie?
I don't know.
You're a fan of if you're a fan of these. Sell me on reading the books, not the movies.
The best thing, really, if you're not a fan of this, the only selling point I can give you is that they're relatively short. They're only about
short.
No, I swear, no, they're relatively short.
Sold. So I can read them on like one flight and be done, right?
Casino Royale is 235 pages. But Ian Fleming does pack in a lot of action, a lot of narrative.
So there's not a lot of
into that short amount of span.
He's not sitting there describing a door for 2 hours.
No,
like that's a lot of why I don't like fiction. They spend so much time world building. Like I'm not a Lord of the Rings or a Dune or.
I've made a very clear issue that I've tried to read Dune. Okay, and when I say I tried, it bored me senseless. I had 300 pages of description of a desert. I know what a desert looks like. There's rocks and sand, and not a whole lot else. Okay, then there was a murder. I was like, all right, a murder, now we're talking. Then they went right back to nothing happening.
I kept thinking, all right, I guess the cool offensive stuff must be coming.
You get guys that fall in love with the sound of their own voice, like Tom Clancy. Tom Clancy's books are the size of a phone book, okay? People remember those, huge. Yeah, and they're full of jargon. The Buffalo Hunter drone was cruising at an altitude of 20,000 feet and dropped its payload.
Care.
Exactly. Just say the plane was flying, it dropped a bomb, it went boom, people died, and it was scary. That's all.
Or I could just watch the movie. So, James Bond books are edited to avoid offense to modern audiences who are not reading books anyway because they're sitting around watching their phones play TikTok videos at them. They're watching girls make faces. They're watching people dance.
They're watching people dip their fries in a Frosty. That guy.
Yeah. They're watching people eat bugs. They're watching. I don't know what the hell they're watching. What else are they watching? They're not. We have no attention span. I was the MTV generation already. We already had no attention span for anything more than 3 minutes. So you want me to sit down and read a whole book or watch a whole movie? It's kind of stretching it.
People don't have.
They're assuming. Well, people are acting too like people are literally what they're holding in their hands right there, pointing that at you, saying you have to read this or else.
And so I'm assigning you all a book to read.
Well,
You have to read this or else, and be offended. Be repent for your sins of being an old white dude reading the originals.
See, what they're going to do is they're going to edit the books to put Idris Elba in it. And James Bond, who so clearly looks like Idris Elba,
Who is now looks like Idris Elba.
boarded the train to Moscow, whatever.
I think this is more just like they're at a loss of what to do and write that people are going to be actually buying and
Seriously,
reading.
okay, dead serious. This is the 70th anniversary of the first book, Casino Royale.
Oh, so they're going to do a new 70th anniversary reprint.
There you go.
This is all marketing again. This is all
Yep.
marketing again. Because, here's the thing. I said, who's reading these books against their will in the first place? Because I saw how what is this, Bleeding Fool, whoever, how they worded this.
Well, this is another article
that's a
about
different
reinventing
article.
James Bond. I mean, it's this one here.
It's the James Bond classics are being edited for my protection.
Yes.
I'm not reading them, though. You're not reading them,
But
though.
you need to be protected from them.
Now, kids, this book is very controversial.
But the people who are offended by this aren't going to read them anyway, and the people who support them already have these on their shelves. I think this is one of those things where they're trying so hard to market a culture war thing against each other. Be mad about this. Be mad about this.
That's you've actually hit on a very important point. The people who chime in, usually this is being done again for the same 5 or 10 people on Twitter. And actually, that is a nice shot there from Russia with Love. It's always the same 5 or 10 people on Twitter that when you say, "Whoa, Idris Elba should play James Bond," they always start off the same. They always start the same way. I don't watch James Bond movies, but
And we're not gonna, and those people aren't gonna buy the book either, though.
No,
That's
they're
the
not.
thing.
They just want to say they think it's a great idea on Twitter.
And we've proven time and time again that the people who virtue signal on Twitter
If you-
don't pay for or support the things that they say they support.
If you don't I've actually read these books. Listen, the big issue they have is with Live and Let Die, which is a lot of gratuitous racial references. But it is written from the perspective of a British man in America, in the American South, in the 1950s. That is the perspective. You cannot, no matter how hard you try, you cannot escape from that fact.
See, I don't want to go down in history as saying that I want racism in books, but at the same time, this happened, these books were written long before I was born, when people tended to speak differently than people speak now. Language and social norms are forever evolving, and what's going to be offensive now is not going to be offensive in 20 years. I mean, what's going to happen in 20 years? There's going to be a huge push to re-release the original versions again, just to say, hey, look at all these prohibition people who wanted everything censored for a while.
And it's just been taken off the banned books list.
Oh, really? Sweet.
Well, people have always said that why should, James Bond, his race, if he changed his race, nothing would change about him. I'm like, well, yeah, if you actually read Live and Let Die, and that's the one they have the biggest problem with is Live and Let Die. Because, again, it is written from the perspective of a white Englishman in the American South in the 1950s. And that's the one they have the perspective, that's the one they have the problem with. Now, for those who don't know, Live and Let Die is actually, they adapted that and they turned it into the movie from License to Kill. A lot of that made that into that movie. But again, we have to, I'm not one of those people that say, ban this, ban that, but listen, we shouldn't be changing it either. Okay? There's still stuff in there that you can say, oh, well, it's almost like a time capsule. Oh, well, this is what it was like back then.
Well, because if they change it constantly, I think a lot of it, when they go and change things, they kind of forget that the 90s were so much more progressive than they are.
One of the dangers you run into is that when you start making changes, it starts becoming fan fiction. And at one point but these changes were authorized by Ian Fleming. Yeah, but Ian Fleming's not around anymore. He really can't chime in on this. if he said, okay, make these changes, that's one thing. But again, he's...
Well, then they're going to start changing the movies, though. And at that point, I'm like, well, I just don't want to watch movies when they change them.
Yeah, it's...
Like, I haven't watched E.T. since they changed it.
Yeah, that's actually a great example.
I'm not afraid to use this walkie-talkie.
Yeah, but it's stupid and it looks dumb. And they changed E.T. And I went back and watched it, like, when they did the change. And I'm like, you know what? E.T. wasn't that good of a movie to begin with. So I haven't watched it since. And... I don't know what the big deal was when I was a kid and why I liked it so much. Maybe because it was the first movie I remember watching in the theater. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But when they change these things, I mean, it's not so much the downfall of society. It's really just hurting themselves. It's hurting the movies.
It's a detriment to the art, quote unquote.
It's going to make me not want to read the books. It's going to make me not want to watch the movies anymore. It's like, oh, you're changing it. Well, who the hell cares anymore? There's no point in me remembering canon. It's the same thing they did with Doctor Who. Every time they kept retconning and changing. Or Star Wars or Star Trek. You keep retconning and changing things. I'm not going to pay attention to anything anymore. It's worse when it's something like Star Wars or Star Trek that has some sort of internal consistent canon that it's supposed to adhere to that it doesn't. But... At the same time, I don't know. I'm not reading these books.
You'll read them and you'll like them. You'll read them.
You can't make me.
You'll read them, comrade.
I am Becca.
I'm Rob off camera.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye.
Aw, book? God, I hate those.